Well, hey, today on the Music Money Podcast, I'm so excited to speak with Luke, Shrestha, and Simon Jay, who are the production duo known as Chapters, based out of Los Angeles. They are songwriters and producers, as well as composers for film and TV and live shows. Most recently, Chapters has written the theme song for ABC's Good Morning America 3, written, produced, engineered songs for artists such as the Carpenters, Rachel Levin, Chance the Rapper, INTRN, Faime, Bender, as well as as an official remix for I Rise by Madonna, which went #1 on the Billboard Dance Charts. Collectively, their artists have accumulated well over 75 million streams across Spotify and YouTube and other streaming platforms, including a #2 hip-hop album on iTunes, JTM's 5 Years to Live. Outside of their contributions to artists, they've also arranged and produced music for shows like the Emmys, the Grammys, the Kennedy Center Honors, as well as TV shows such as This Is Us, Family Guy, and High School Musical. They've also provided music for many different brands and ad campaigns, including the NBA, Pinterest, and Puma. They've also scored for Disney Plus, as well as theme songs for HBO Max and Amazon Prime TV series. Luke and Simon, welcome to the Music Money Podcast. How are you guys doing?
Thanks for having us.
Yeah, thanks.
Our pleasure. Well, that's an incredible bio, I must say. So if we could sort of simplify for our audience. So you guys are a songwriting, producing, and composing duo. So you're like a company, like a partnership,
exactly.
Right?
So we have a company, Sound Tiger Songs, which is just kind of how we encompass all these different projects into one kind of place. But yeah, it's me and Simon. We've been doing it, between the two of us for about 8 years now. And it's just slowly grown. And, we just moved into the studio, like 5 years ago. So I'm not just moved in, but we've been here for a bit. We actually just bought it about 1.5 years ago. So I've been doing a lot of renovations and making it really ours. And it's actually been a studio since the 80s. So like the original High School Musical was done here, and Breakfast Club, and a lot of really cool things.
Oh, wow.
So we're able to come here about 5 years ago, start doing a lot of our projects out of here, and finally bought it about 1 year ago. So it's been great.
Nice. That's cool. So, again, it's kind of keeping in perspective of the audience here. So as a company, then, can you kind of help us understand sort of your day-to-day jobs? I mean, are you being hired by record labels, like TV shows?
It's really a lot of everything. I think we are really fortunate to have really great relationships, like friendships with most of the people we work with. And I think we're really called upon to bring out the best in whatever project or whatever artist we're working on. So Luke and I we both have been playing music since we were 4. So we've literally been like crafting melodies and like learning music and, playing chord progressions and writing really since we were 4 years old. So for us, it's as easy as speaking. It's almost sometimes easier to play it out than to actually speak with words. Like we just understand it like so fundamentally like that. So our goal in everything is to always increase the value of whatever project we're on. And if it's anything from like a brand new artist that we're trying to get signed, or a major label artist, or a show like the Grammys, we are there to elevate it and make it better. So just by the fact of having us on that show or working with this artist, it will be better because we're on it. So that's kind of like the mindset we're approaching with everything, because we're not artists and we're here as like really like as a service to everybody that we're working with. But that being said, it will be better because we're on it.
Excellent. So companies are actually coming to you, or are you pitching?
We've almost exclusively been word of mouth. We don't have a company website. Nice. We have a Spotify playlist of a lot of the songs we've written and produced, but we're really sought after. We don't seek out.
And it's because of our work too. Right. It's everything that we do, we try to accomplish at the highest level, and so I think that type of mentality, just making sure the job is done at a grandeur level, is really something that has kept on getting us hired over and over, and has led to more and more work. So, it might have started, at the very bottom, 6-7 years ago doing menial stuff, but we did it really well and just kind of built on top of that ever since then.
Yeah, my first gig here was in 2014, and we were recording a show called The Nick on Stars with Clive Owen, and all the music was being recorded here. And my one job was turning off the AC in between takes. Like that's, but that got us in the door, and then Luke and I took over, and then we were able to buy the place. But, anything we're doing has to be to the highest degree of excellence.
And I think that's a huge lesson for a lot of people that are, trying to get into music. It's like, you might be running coffee, for a bit, but if you run coffee at the highest level, someone's going to notice, and someone will take that and be like, hey, you should run this session next time. And then you run the session to the highest level, and now you're, just up a level. So it's, we've really built ourselves to have longevity in this industry. And, by doing that, I think we kind of understand a lot of different facets of the industry. And, through our credits, we've worked on so many different types of things. We're able to understand a lot of different aspects of the industry. So it's been a really cool journey, a really unique journey for us through the industry.
Okay, well, let's kind of back up then. Let's talk about your journey, because you both look pretty young. Are you born and raised in LA, or how did this?
Yeah,
let's kind of back up. You said since 4 years old.
Yeah, so for me, our journeys are pretty similar overall. We moved to LA around the same time. I moved from Fresno, so I grew up in a small town just outside of Fresno, California, and it was probably like 5,000-6,000 people. My mom's a music teacher, so is my sister. So I just grew up around music. My mom, started giving me piano lessons at the age of 3. I started doing violin as well around the age of 3 as well. So, I've grown up around music. My whole house had musical instruments everywhere. So I was just constantly around it. As a baby, my mom would be giving, lessons to other people in our house, and I would just be sitting there as a baby and, taking it all in. So I'd like to think, it's really just been all encompassing my life. So it's really just been, my path all along. But yeah, that's kind of like where I started out.
Yeah, and my story was a little different, but it's I'm actually a Korean adoptee. So I was born in Seoul, and I was adopted when I was 5 months old. And my parents put me in piano. I played clarinet, a guitar, basically piano lessons at 4. And I basically grew up playing in bands for fun, but also playing in orchestras. But I was actually in Korea 3 years ago for a friend's wedding, and I was just looking randomly like where the adoption office was like relative to where I was staying, and it was 0.5 miles away, which was crazy, so serendipitous. But I walked in and I asked for my adoption file, and I actually was able to find out that my birth mom loves to write poetry and sing songs and play piano. So it's that crazy like nature versus nurture thing. It's both. It's really both. It's like I definitely got that from my birth mom, but in growing up playing music since I was 4, really like found that skill and that passion for it. So
cool. So Simon, you mentioned playing in some bands and whatnot. I'm kind of a band guy. So do you both have those experiences? Growing up playing in garage bands, or like, going out and gigging or anything, or did you take?
I definitely did. I was in a metal band in high school and college, and it was really awesome. But I think what Luke and I have in common in that is we both just got really, really old MacBooks when we were younger, and it had like GarageBand or Logic or something on it, where we were able to just like make songs with it. And it was one of those things like no one ever had to force us to do it. We were just like every waking moment, which is like, like discovering something new. So that's kind of where it was birthed. We have had a musical experience and even a writing experience from a very, very young age. But as far as production, it was something that we just like discovered.
Yeah, for me, I hated practicing. I would practice for hours. At one point in my life, I was doing, drums, violin, piano, and organ. And so just so many instruments. I practiced 4 hours a day. I just hated it. But my one thing in the morning, I would get up, right before school, or 6 a.m. I would just sit on the organ. I had like a Hammond in our house, and I just plug in headphones. I would just improvise, just pretend like I was practicing for, an hour every single day. So I think that's where I really started to kind of fall in love with like composing in a weird way.
Yeah.
And then my mom had, or I was thinking it was my mom, my sister had a really old MacBook, got GarageBand, started, producing in there. And that's where I really fell in love with like production and, writing and all that stuff. So it's kind of similar for us in that way as well.
That's cool. I mean, the Hammond, I am such a Hammond nut. I don't even play. I barely can play keyboards, but I own a Hammond. Because I wanted to have one so bad for our band and have the legit. I mean, we bought the Hammond XKS. It's still a digital thing. But the thing I love about that instrument, even with me just kind of playing around with it, is when you're moving those drawbars and you're changing the speed of the Leslie and all that kind of stuff. It's a way to shape the sound. It's not just, oh, here's a piano. It just makes like this one sound. So I have to think it's almost like an early, like when people play with synthesizers, and they're just turning those knobs and making all those sounds. I mean, you can spend hours doing that stuff. I don't know if you did that, but, well, that's cool. So and you'd said something earlier about you speak on the same language. Now, a lot of times band guys, we speak as far as like song structure and stuff. Oh, you go back to the hook or you go back to or is it more like music theory?
It's both, but
like when you're trying
if you
to
think about it, like you're composing right now, like you're thinking something in your brain and you're like, okay, how do I get these two people I'm speaking to over here, like how to understand what I'm saying and like get more information from them or like have them understand what I'm saying, right? So everyone composes every day. Like you have a conversation with someone you're composing. Mm-hmm. So what I mean by that is we're able to do that through notes and chords, production, sonics, textures, mixing, mastering, like all these elements of a song. We're able to communicate with those just as easily as it were to be us speaking and like composing words to have a conversation with you. So almost like on that other spiritual plane level of like the soul of a song, really, like we just understand it on that level just because we were learning it at the same time developmentally in your brain that you develop communication. So both of those things at the same time, you're really able to like learn how to craft a song in that way. So,
yeah,
go
ahead.
Oh, go ahead. Oh, I was just gonna ask maybe how you guys met and how you decided to go into business together.
Yeah, for us, we met in Monterey at this summer college program. It was called Summer Arts, and this was 2013, so 8 years ago. But we met there. It was a whole 2-week program, intensive program where you live at the campus and you get taught by all these really cool composers. Like Bruce Broughton was there, and Ed Hallens, right? Hallens.
Yeah.
And then what was the
Jim Dooley was there. William Malpe, like all these Disney songwriter guys.
So a lot of like really professionals in the industry we got to get taught by them. For 2 weeks. And for Simon and I, we were kind of the two people that really, stayed later than everyone else, worked really hard, and also really liked pop music. We were both kind of like more in the song realm of things rather than like the film composing. Mm-hmm. We loved both, but we were kind of leaning in that direction. So we kind of just started working together. I was just going to move out to LA that year. So I moved out. We started working together. Simon was already in LA by that time. So yeah, ever since then, we've basically been doing everything together.
Yeah, it's kind of a cool masterclass for life too. It's like you work really hard and you put in the extra hours. You start to look at the terrain and you find other people that are doing the same thing as you. I think it's the same for anything. If you're slacking or you're lazy or you're not like, really driven, you kind of, it's like a self-fulfilling prophecy. You almost find more of those people. But for us, we were always there later, staying earlier. I think at one point we're going like to the gym every morning together, just like, hey, you want to get up like an hour early and go to the gym? And we would just go on runs and it's like we just always ran into each other because we were always those people putting in more work.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So when you were both in LA then independently, were you both kind of like going up, like, did you both have the mindset, like when you said that you were going to move to LA, was it, I'm going to work in the industry. I want to, work in film, or I want to work in, what was your purpose for moving to LA?
Yeah, definitely working in the industry. I mean, for me, the main purpose at first, I would say, would be college, because Simon was just about to graduate. I was about to start my freshman year. when in 2013 when we met. But for me, I was just starting college, but immediately I started trying to get jobs and internships in LA. So I wasn't waiting around until after college. So for me, I got an internship with this guy named John Feldman, who's a big pop punk producer, and he did like 5 Seconds of Summer and All Time Low and about a lot of the pop punk bands. So I got to learn a lot from him directly, just kind of being around the bands, and I got to work on a 5 Seconds of Summer record, and that was like my first credit. So it was a really cool experience, just kind of like to start to like grow in the industry, and I got a lot of experience and also connections through that I still have today. So.
Yeah, for sure. Okay. Well, that's cool. So like when in your business, do you have other people who kind of work for you either as on staff or as freelancers, like musicians or recording engineers, or do you guys pretty much do
a lot of it
yourself?
Is we staff up. Like we've done big shows where I was just talking about it last night where Luke and I were working on a show called Earth's Call, and it was in Aspen, Colorado, and we actually flew like a 70-piece orchestra and full rhythm section from LA to Aspen for the show. And we staffed up. We had like 6 music prep people, a bunch of arrangers, just coordinators.
That's crazy.
And then we did like a run in summer of 2019 where we did like 2 Europe trips. We did like High School Musical, This Is Us, like a festival in Spain, all at the same time as we were doing like a 25-song project for one of our artists. So it gets pretty crazy sometimes. So we'll staff up for sure. But day to day, we have a coordinator named Lisa Einhorn-Gilder, who also has done Lady Gaga for like 11, 12 years. She's been with Gaga since the very beginning. We have an assistant, Alec, who kind of handles our day to day, who's really like just like kind of like the third member of us. And then also another producer named Jed, who we've kind of been like we rent out one of the rooms at our studio to him, and we're starting to get him more involved in some of the projects we're doing. And then we have our attorney Jackie Priel, who was counsel at Interscope for a while. So just making sure all these deals that we're getting into are in everyone's best interest, and it's just like everyone has their own role in the company, and everybody is just as important.
Yeah, and, we started out just me and Simon, just literally just us two. And as you go along your journey, you just find people that you share similar values with, that you're able to just kind of hang out with. And you obviously start to need more of a team as you go along too. But, it just made sense. Every single person on our team, is just a good person. They get along with us really well. We work together really well. And we also just share a similar vision as far as like where we're going together. So we're able to kind of work towards that every single day through the ups and downs of the industry. So, it's an incredible team. We're super lucky to have them.
Yeah, because I was talking, I can't remember who it was, and they were talking about a certain producer that's pretty well known, and it was an engineer that was doing some work for them, and he's like, yeah, I pretty much I'll spend like the first part of my morning listening to kick drum sounds, and just like over and over, and I'm one of a team of maybe 10 people that he has working on stuff like this, where he's essentially outsourcing all these little projects, and then it all kind of culminates. And I was like, wow, that's an interesting approach. I think sometimes we get this mindset that, producers are just like, they're either just doing everything themselves or, and they don't, but it makes sense to have a team, because like in the marketing world where I'm from, I mean, I am not a graphic arts guy. I always need graphic arts done for everything, but I kind of know my role. It's like, okay, you're really good at that. I'm the writing guy. We'll make it work together.
One of the greatest challenges Luke and I have had in our entire career isn't even music related. I think one of our biggest challenges has been being in a managerial role, just because you always have to be evaluating everyone's strengths, weaknesses, how this person and this person are working together. Are we communicating clearly to the people on our team? And not only that, our clients, so all of us internally are always reevaluating our relationship with each other. And I think team meetings have been super important. and obviously just communicating with each other, which is really hard to do, especially if you're in the thick of a project. But to be able to just stop everything and just be like, let's reevaluate how we're communicating. It's like basically like a marriage.
Yeah, for sure. And, being a band leader with 8 people in the band, 2 crew members, a manager, been doing this for close to 9 years. I'm always learning lessons, as far as just, like you mentioned, the relationships, not just their skill level or their talent, but just their, commitment to the band, or their, do they get along well with each other? Got this super talented guy over here, but, it kind of rubs this other guy wrong. And, of course, the more bodies there are in the room, the more easier that is, that the higher percentage that might actually happen. And it's tough. It's tough. But the beautiful thing is, when it comes together and it's right, you can do amazing things. That's why I've always loved the band dynamic. It's just like, because when you're performing and it's on point and the audience is really picking up what you're laying down, it's like, it's an amazing thing. But then it can also be not so amazing if the guys in the band aren't getting along, or there's drama.
One of our friends, his dad owns a $3 billion company, commercial real estate company, and he really built it, him and his family, from the ground up. And we were all at dinner the other week, and we asked him, it's like, what's kind of like the greatest challenge you've had being in this position through most of your career? And he said, firing people. It's one of the hardest things he's ever had to do. Someone who's built a $3 billion business, firing people is the hardest thing he's ever had to do. I'm like, oh, feel that.
Yeah, absolutely. Because it's one of those things. Sometimes when you do it, it's probably something you should have done maybe even a year before, or maybe even longer, but
it's tough too, because a lot of, some people, it's not even that they are doing things wrong. It's just that they aren't a good fit for our circumstance, and that's the tough part of being, a manager and managerial role in a company. It's like, you are trying to figure out, not only is this person a good person, are they a good fit? It's like, are they actually are they going to be happy here? And I think that's also a big thing for us. It's like, if they're not happy, they're also not going to do the work well. They could be a great person, but if they're not happy in that role, they're just not going to do well. So I think that's, it's hard to discern that. Obviously, you interview someone for, 15 minutes or 20 minutes, especially over Zoom now. It's hard to really know someone, but as you have just more experience with it, you just start to grow on that and start to be more discerning. So,
yeah, for sure. So let's talk a little bit about your I guess, musical abilities, for lack of a better way of putting it. I mean, you guys mentioned multiple instruments that you play. I mean, do you think, is that important in your role? I mean, do you guys can both consider yourselves really good players, or where are you on that?
Yeah,
the scale?
We're good enough players for what we do. With recording, you can have as many takes as you want. So it's like, you can
we'll get there.
you can cut and pay some stuff, make sure it's good. So, I mean, it's important for us just because, our big thing when people come to us, I think one of the reasons is because of our musicality. We understand music. It's part of who we are. It's in our blood. So the fact that we understand the theory behind it, we understand, if we want to bring in a string section, we can do the parts, we can put them all in Sibelius, we know the theory, we know how to communicate with them. And so it's like, there's a lot of little things inside of music that as you grow and experience, it really just helps you more and more and more. A lot of people, I think, are afraid to learn music theory because they're like, oh, it's going to take away my creativity. But in our case, it really enhances it. It allows us to communicate to certain people a certain way. And also, it helps us communicate with people that lack the knowledge as well. It helps us communicate in a way that they'll understand, but we're able to kind of simplify what we're saying in a way that they can understand it. So I think it's very important. The more that you know, the better you start to become at communicating certain things. And because of the diversity of the things we've done, the live shows, the TV shows, the pop songs, they've all kind of bled into each other and really helped us, gain this cool experience that really unique experience, and helps us make really cool songs and communicate in different ways.
Yeah, I also think it's we also think of ourselves just as like producing the artist life instead of just producing the song for the artist. We're always thinking about branding, lyrical content, like color schemes, what some of these like album covers are going to look like. Like we definitely have that in mind. And I think the more knowledge you can accrue, the better it takes more energy to use it, of course, but the better end result. And the perfect example is we had a client the other day who was like, we sent in a mix. We're like, do you have any notes on this? And she said, yeah, I just feel like vocals overall need to be more present. Like, let's turn them up 2 dB. And an inexperienced producer would be like, yeah, let's turn the vocals up 2 dB. But we were able to read through that and be like, okay, she wants the vocals more present, but like we have a good balanced mix. Let's turn the reverb down, because then less reverb, it'll seem more in your face. Yeah. So it's interpreting what they're saying.
Yeah.
Sometimes they don't mean what they say, but it's a knowledge thing. But we're able to hear, okay, this is what they want accomplished. And if you don't have those tools in your toolbox to get that, you're just going to be throwing darts at the wall, like left and right. But we're like, okay, what do you want out of that? And then we're able to get them what they want, but not necessarily in a way that they thought.
Right. No, that makes perfect sense. So, and that kind of leads into my next question, which was about the actual like engineering. So you both sound like you said you started at an early age at GarageBand, which is what an incredible tool. Obviously I have a few years on you guys. Just the fact that you had a full-blown music studio, if you will, that 30 years ago would have cost $1 million on your laptop, and it's just built in. It's just free software. It really is incredible, and it's kind of spawned a generation that just, oh, look at that, there's this really cool thing that's right there. But I was going to ask, how much of a role does being a studio engineer play in your day-to-day work? I mean, because that's pretty complex world.
Yeah, tons for sure. And as we both own $1 million of, like what you say in a laptop, and we also own $1 million studio. So there are cases for both, and it's the same thing about knowledge and experience. They're all just tools, right? Like we just had Paul Anka in. We did the latest Paul Anka record, and we were doing a vocal session with a small gospel choir in there, and he will not use auto-tune, and there's no like stacking overdub stuff. It's like, no, these singers are singing into the mic these parts. But then also we have artists that are really talented that maybe like 16, 17 and are just getting started. It's like, okay, we'll play in their world a little bit. It's like, okay, we're going to use Antares for the auto-tune. We're just going to overdub all the harmonies. They're all just tools, right?
Yeah, and for us, we started out recording music in Simon's bedroom in LA.
Yeah.
The first time we were both kind of like really diving deep into recording engineering was in LA, and we were just in a tiny apartment with a little Rode NT1 mic, and we're like, how do we get that pop vocal sound, that really crystal clean vocal that like has that nice high end but isn't muddy? Sort of like we'd spend hours just like messing with plugins and trying to figure out how to get that sound, and we were able to achieve it to a certain extent with the little gear we had. And then, fast forward 9 years, now we're in this really nice studio with 1073 Neves and, crazy expensive mics. But all that experience really helped us, because if we didn't have that experience, we probably wouldn't have been able to get this really nice mic and this really nice pre to even sound good. Because it's not even about the gear at some points. It's about getting the singer behind that mic to convey a certain emotion, and then everything else under that kind of domino effects. It's the vocalist first, and then you want to have a good mic, a good pre, et cetera, et cetera. But it really helped having that experience of having a really cheap mic and a really crappy room, getting a really good vocal sound out of that. Now we go to expensive studio, it's easy to make that sound good.
Yeah, absolutely. So it's basically working with the tools that you have and trying to get as much as you possibly can out of them, and not thinking, well, I would be a better engineer if I could only have this $5,000 setup or whatever. You know, you're how much of I'm just curious how much of a role that like YouTube or online research tools played in that. Yeah. That's another thing that I think about, current day versus 30 years ago. You literally had to go to the library sometimes to.
Yeah,
to
I mean,
things.
For me, YouTube has been huge because that's how I learned. I'm 24, so I kind of grew up in the YouTube age of videos were starting to really get put up on there and tutorials, and I learned a lot on YouTube. I would say a lot of, a big portion of my knowledge started to come from YouTube, and then just the experience of it, just doing it and actually starting to experiment with stuff and hear how it sounds doing it this way compared to this way. It's just, the hours and hours of actually doing it is really what got us to where we are today. If we just sat on YouTube and just watched and didn't actually do it, it would have not translated. But the fact we were able to actually just experiment and do it, what really helped us kind of achieve the sound we have today.
That's such great advice. And that kind of makes me then think about, okay, so let's talk about those early days when you were in LA. I'm assuming, I don't know if you were eating ramen or what it was like, when you didn't have the clients that you have now. And maybe somebody, I don't know how it went for you. Like if they approached you, hey, I've got $500. What can you help me write produce a song or something like that? I mean, was that kind of how the ball got rolling with you guys?
Sure,
or,
also,
so in other words, what projects did you have that you had?
I mean, to a certain point, we are still that way, right? We want to work with people that want to work with us, and we want to work with people that we can bring true value, whether it's getting signed or doing sync stuff, music for sync placements. But those are all just bargaining chips, right? Especially the money thing, because I feel like a lot of people get hung up on this really quickly. We've had some people now come up to us and be like, guys, get a level with you. All I have is, $800. But I seriously want to work with you guys. I just really believe in what you guys are doing. We're aligned. The only thing that's holding me back is the money. It's like, cool, we'll get you there. Let's work. So at the beginning, we were taking everything we possibly could just to survive, and we did do the whole ramen thing. I think I budgeted $35 a week. The first year out of college for food, right? So that was not ideal. But, obviously we're in a situation now where we can be more selective. And yes, money is one of the things that we are selective about, but more than anything, we want to work with people who have the same vision as us, right? But theirs is on the artist side. Ours is okay, how can we get them there? We want to work with people who are really driven, who are really passionate about it, who have a purpose and feel like they have something to say, right? So I feel like if you get too caught up on the budget thing, perhaps you're going in the wrong direction, right? So I think that's just one thing, and that can dictate how much we can do on a project. But the bottom line is we want to work with people who share those three things, right? Who kind of have that same mindset and mentality as us.
Cool. Oh, I meant to ask this before with the instruments question, but do either of you sing?
I sing enough.
We can hit pitches. That's about it.
You don't want to hire me to sing something, but I can.
I'm sorry. Okay. Because I just sometimes I wonder if that holds people back that are songwriters. They can write incredible melodies and great hooks and all that, but then they make their demos and they are literally the last person they want to.
I mean that's okay too, but I think the bottom line is having something to say, right? If you're a keyboard player, you can always tell the songwriters that are keyboard players and not singers, because there's just a lot of leaps, a sixth, a leap where you're just I don't know if that translates to the voice. It's someone who doesn't understand the voice, right? Or if you look at someone who some of these younger composers or orchestrators who are writing for, say, clarinet, and they're oh yeah, let's go in between C4 and C5. Let's do all these really intricate lines. And they don't know that clarinet has a break right there where you literally go from having two fingers to like all 10, right? So it's kind of like knowing the instrument you're writing for. And I think if you do have an understanding of all these instruments, you can write really efficiently for them. It's like the same thing with producing. It's like you want to know like how to use all these tools you're given instead of just like throwing stuff together. Everything is, I think, for us is all about in life and in music is just very deliberate, purposeful movements rather than like, oh, we're going to try this, or we're going to try this, or we're going to try this. It's like we have a lot of stuff we want to try. But for us, the path to success is very, very, very purposeful and very deliberate choices. So a lot of that is just, knowledge and experience with what you're doing.
Well, that's a great segue. So somebody who's wanting to get into this, that wants, that you're just like, man, if I could be in LA, just hanging out in studios and writing songs and working on these major projects. And, they look at you guys, you're both really young. You're thinking, and I'm like, giving an example, I'm from Indiana, Southern Indiana. Yeah, it's pretty much surrounded by soybean fields most of the time. But, and that's just seems kind of like this far off dream. But what advice would you give to someone, maybe they definitely have some musical skill. They have some engineering abilities, but they don't really have any clients. Maybe they've done a few, demos for people or whatever. They think they're pretty good. How do they go from there? I mean, for one, do they need to move to LA? Is that a big factor?
Yeah.
Or what advice would you
moving
give?
to LA is for sure a huge help. As things start to open up too, it's just going to be helpful. It's for us, we're always about giving, as a new producer, new songwriter, or whatever, give yourself the best chance for success. And moving to LA is just going to give you a better chance of success. So why not do it? It's a big move for some people. And I think there's a lot you can do outside of LA. So if you can't move to LA immediately, there's YouTube, you can learn. There's different websites where you can connect with our creatives. So there's a lot of things you can do to kind of outside of LA that you can build yourself as a producer. But if you really want to make authentic connections, you just really can't do that online. I mean, it's a lot easier with Zoom and all these different apps now, but it's just different being in person and meeting someone and shaking their hand and looking in the eye in person. There's something different about it, and it's more authentic that way, and it's just going to give you a better chance of success.
Yeah, I think mine's more on like the philosophical. I think like the big thing is find your why. It's like, why are you doing what you're doing? Like, what is your purpose in that? If you're like, oh, I want to make tons of money, it's like perhaps not the best career to get involved with.
Yeah, go to the stock market.
Yeah, do something else. But I think the one thing we're always, like we were saying, is very purposeful, deliberate choices, right? And I think what comes with that is a clear mind. And if you need to have a why, a purpose to have a clear mind. If not, you're just like drowning in your own thoughts and you're just so in your head, and it can lead to like anxiety, depression, just like existential like dread, right? But you look at all these very successful people, not rich, but successful people in what they're doing. And you look at people, the way they move, and they're like, you can tell they have a crystal clear mind. So I think a lot of that comes from having a why. Because if you're like us, we're like, we want to be able to tell stories to the highest degree possible. That's one of our whys. So knowing that that's your why, you can make these choices. And it goes down to like musical things to even like life things. You're like, maybe I'm not going to go to this party because I'd rather get up early tomorrow morning and really sit down and write a song. So like you can really start to make better decisions. Your decision-making process will get so much better, and you'll start to realize stuff that you probably don't need in your life that you think you do. And we struggle with that for sure. We're always finding new whys. We're always, looking inward. And like we were saying, like we're always reevaluating our relationships. But I think that's like a good metric for good decision making, which will lead to a clear mind, because then you'll really get to figure out what you want and how you're going to get there.
Nice. So in your early days, I'm curious, did you guys have like other gigs? Were you waiting tables? When the music wasn't quite paying the bills, what was that like?
We've been pretty lucky. we really, from the beginning have been doing music and basically solely music. I did have a job my freshman year in college as a cook for a golf course for about 6 months. But after that, music was really able to pay basic bills. And for us, we just sacrificed a lot. We might have been making $2,000 a month, but we were living on $2,000 a month. We really made it work, and it sucked, eating ramen every day. For me, eating soup every day, canned soup, it was not super fun. And, not being able to spend money and, being super tight on your budget. But, you start to grow from there. And, just the fact we're doing music full time was huge for us. So it's we always wanted that to be, the foundation of what we did. It's let's make sure that we're just doing music. And then from there, stuff will start falling into place. And, now we're lucky enough. It's we can not have canned soup every day. We can actually go out to eat, and it's a lot nicer. But, it's taken a lot of sacrifice over a lot of years. And, that's the part that loses a lot of people, because it's tough. It's not fun to go through that. But it honestly can be very necessary, and can be the little bit of a hurdle you need to get over to get to their side of a little bit of comfort. I mean, music is never, I would say, comfortable in a sense, because we're creatives, and so we're always in our head about things, and it can be very tough. And we're entrepreneurs, so you're running your own business as an artist, as a producer, as a songwriter, as a instrumentalist, whatever you're doing, you're running your own business. So some months are slow, some months are crazy. It's just all over the map. So you just kind of have to have, like Simon was saying, just a very clear mind in all of that, through all of that, so you can really prepare yourself and, actually be happy as a musician. Because a lot of musicians are very unhappy, because it is very volatile and it is very tough to figure out and make it as a musician. But, it is very important to have a clear mind so you can kind of make it through that stuff.
Yeah, as you were saying that, I was thinking about when I was in my early days in marketing, I was a copywriter, and copywriting projects, they paid pretty well, but but I was the guy that was writing all the stuff, and you'd get a good paying gig, and then you focused on that for a few weeks or whatever, and you get the next part of the check, but then you wouldn't have another gig, and it's so I don't know if it was like that in your world when you were starting up, of because and for the folks that are listening, $2,000 a month. I don't know if you were living in LA at the time. That is, I cannot even fathom, because I lived in LA back in 1996, and 2,000 a month still wouldn't have went very far back then. But so living off that, and then having, I don't know if you guys dealt with that, having these jobs, and thank God we got a job, we got a project we can work on, we got a check, we can, but then at the end of it, you're like, now what? So there's this marketing thing that has to happen in between, or networking or whatever, to make sure you've got projects coming.
Have
Did
goals.
you run into that?
Have goals. That's the biggest thing. Is Luke and I used to have a ledger and be like, this is what we need to make. And we're like, how are we going to make that? So we had an actual specific number of goals. And then we were like, okay, we need to up this. And it's, even if you fall short of that, it's always better to have something to shoot for, because then you have data, you have information. You're like, okay, I'm making 30% of my income off producing, and 40% off, I don't know, selling beats or whatever you're doing, or and then another 30% of being assistant or whatever you're doing. And you're like, okay, what are those numbers? What do I want those numbers to be? And what's the grand total? You have more information if you're setting thresholds and you're finding specific numbers. A lot of people are like, well, I want to lose weight. And you're like, okay, what does that mean? It's like, okay, I want to lose 15 pounds. Okay, what's the best way to get there? What's a good deadline to get there by? Okay, 3 months. Okay, so here's my plan. 4 days a week, I'm going to do this. 3 days a week, I'm going to do the other. It's it almost unfolds by itself when you have specific goals in mind. And it's less about achieving that goal and more about the fact of going towards that goal, right?
Yeah, and I think setting goals that are, within your control, goals that, are, for example, a goal that's not really something you have control over is placements. It's I want to get 10 placements this next year on TV, film, or artist, whatever. that's honestly something you just don't have control over. So rather than setting a goal of like, oh, I want to get 10 placements, maybe setting a goal of, I want to do 200 songs or 200 starts this year, whatever the number is or what you're trying to achieve. So setting a goal that you yourself can control. And then from there, hopefully that overarching goal of like, oh, I want those 10 placements, that'll start to fall along with that. But a lot of stress can also come from setting goals that you just don't have control over. And you're sitting there at the end of the month or at the end of the year, you're like, I didn't achieve any of these goals, but you still did the work. But, on paper, you're like, oh, I didn't do anything. So it's, that can be a big stressor. So I think setting goals that you yourself can control, can achieve, that's a lot more sustainable as well.
Okay. That's great advice. So you mentioned sync, and that's certainly a hot topic. I'm in a lot of music marketing forums, and how much of that is your world? I mean, does it pretty much revolve around that? Or maybe I should even back up even further. For those who are listening, it's like, I've heard that term sync placements, but I really don't understand what it is. How does a songwriter make money doing that? Because this is the music money podcast, so we should be talking about at least stuff that does actually generate income.
So sync is a big part of what we do. We've gotten some of our biggest credits through sync, as far as like the Good Morning America theme song, and we just had a song on Euphoria. So really cool, shows, and it generates money. Not only is it generating an upfront fee, but it's also generating PRO money. For anyone listening, it's like PRO is going to be huge if you're not with one already. Join ASCAP or BMI. It's super inexpensive. And for example, just to actually give some numbers, on the Good Morning America theme, individually, we didn't have that big a percentage on it because ABC takes the publishing. So of that $1 you're getting for a royalty, 50% of that is gone because the big company ABC, they own the publishing, they technically own the song. So they get 50% of the royalty. But we still had to split on the writers. We had 5 writers on it. So, it got swindled down to quite a bit. But even with that, we were probably making about $10,000 a year individually just off the royalties. So, you have the upfront sync fee, but then the royalties on top of that, every single year, that's just going to go as long as that song plays. And obviously network television is going to pay really good royalties overall. And especially for a theme is huge because the royalties are crazy on theme songs specifically for a show. But the royalties, and you get that through your PRO, can really, that can be your retirement. So that's super important to be set up.
Nice. So my burning question is, so did you do that on spec? I mean, how did that all transpire, or how do most of your projects transpire? Like, hey, Good Morning America is looking for a new theme song. Could you guys write something?
A lot of it we get what we call briefs. It's basically like the sandbox. And the case with Good Morning America, I can't remember what the temp was, but there was like a temp song, and they're like, it's just not hitting the right way. We're thinking something like this, like what would you guys do? So, we just imagine the host walking out in front of a live audience, like, yeah, like, good morning, everybody. Like, let's go. So we were like, what does that mean? What does that mean to us? What will get people hyped? What will get people like out of their seats and like cheering for these hosts, right? So we did a first pass on it, and they loved it. We ended up losing it. It's one of those things. It's like you don't get it until it's on the air. You don't celebrate about it until it's on the air. And then basically what happened after that was there was like probably like 4 or 5 months of just limbo. We were like, okay, I guess we lost it. And then probably was it like a month before the show aired, they were like, oh, actually we like this song. So it was back in. So we did do it on spec, but they did pay a fee.
Nice.
We did get a sync fee.
Once we actually got it.
Once we actually got it, yeah. We did get a sync fee for that. So that was the upfront money that Luke was mentioning. But then after that, it was all PRO.
Okay, nice. So, because I kind of envision like an ad agency, the old ad agencies pitches, if a big company like Nike comes in and there's a bunch of different agencies that come in and do their pitch. I mean, is it kind of like that, where there's other songwriting companies out there that like they're saying, hey, let's hear what you got, and everybody
everyone shopped around for sure. And there are like trailer houses or ad companies that will that brands will hire So each of them usually have like a music supervisor, a music editor, someone in charge of producer in charge of post. So those are the people that you want to have a good working relationship with. So we fortunately have some pretty good relationships with those people, but the people we do have good relationships with are like people that are also like-minded like us, who also share that vision of like excellence and working really hard and creating something great. So we want to attract that kind of business, right? So a lot of that is inwards as well. We're like, we want to be the best. We only want to work with the best, and that's not necessarily the most successful, but people who want to achieve that last little 2% that people spend the rest of their lives trying to get.
Nice. So, and then, you've worked with some artists. I noticed some artists that are signed to major labels. Is that a big part of your business or just a
it's a big part, working with, recently you've been working a lot with Interscope and a few of their artists, and we love Interscope. They have such a good team. They're one of the biggest labels in the world right now. And they're just killing it. They have the biggest artists in the world. They have Billie Eilish, they have J. Cole. They just have so many artists, and they're just such a good team. So well functioning.
They have the same vision.
And they have definitely the same vision. And with our artist, that we worked with, iBender, we got her the Euphoria placement. That really jumpstarted her career. And it was really awesome to see because, it started as, we were just doing songs with her because she's, incredible vocalist, incredible artist, and shared a lot of the same vision as us. And just started doing some songs with her. She was able to get signed because of those songs to Interscope. And just right after she got signed, we got her the Euphoria placement. So it was really cool to see also the fans that she got through that placement. On a bigger placement like that, there's a lot of eyes on it, obviously, and a lot of specific people that are watching it. And she just fit right in that crowd and really just kind of jumpstarted her career. So that was really cool to see. And, because we had those sync connections prior to working with her, we were able to get that for her, and it really jumpstarted her artist career. So it's like everything really goes hand in hand in this industry, and even the live shows that we do. Now, because we have that experience in the live shows, we are able to put together a live show and music direct a live show for an artist that's going on tour. So all these things kind of bleed into each other. And as far as major label artists, it's definitely a big part. And we love Interscope. We love a lot of the labels out there. They're doing some really cool work. And, it's one of those things. The only advice I'd say when working with a major label is just have a good lawyer, have someone that can really look out for you. And also just do your own research, really figure out like what's the difference between master and song? Like what's a typical like deal for a producer? What's a typical deal for an artist? I think just knowing a basic foundation of how these deals work, you can then go to a lawyer and they can do the detail work of it because they've spent their life doing that. But knowing the details and knowing the foundation as yourself, as a producer, artist, or whatever, is super important.
Nice. Well, Luke and Simon, you guys have been incredibly generous with your time, incredible information. We've almost went for an hour. And so I do want to value your time. I appreciate it so much. And is there anything, if anybody wants to get a hold of you, and like you said, you don't have a website.
Instagram, maybe?
How would people get a hold of you?
Yeah, we're
okay.
It's Luke _chapters and Simon _chapters. So we're definitely
we're easy to find.
Yeah, we're easy to find on social media.
Great. Okay, guys, thank you so much, and hope you have a great day.
Thanks so much.
Talk to you soon.